Winters in Yakutia. In the frozen wilderness of Yakutia, winter is not a season. It is a ruler. Temperatures fall to -71 degrees Celsius. Breath turns to crystals in the air. Wood cracks in the silence. And in a small log cabin, buried beneath snowdrifts, lives an 80-year-old woman named Umsura. She has lived alone for many years. Her children moved south. Her husband rests beneath the frozen earth. But Umsura never left. This land, deep in the heart of Siberia, is stitched into her bones. The first winter, years ago, during a storm that swallowed the forest whole, Umsura found something unusual in the snow. A tiny brown bear cub. Alone. Freezing. Crying so faintly the wind nearly erased the sound. She knew the danger. A cub meant a mother nearby. But she also knew the cold. And she knew that this cub would not survive the night. So she carried it home inside her coat. She fed it goat's milk warmed by the iron stove. She wrapped it in old wool blankets. She slept beside it, waking every hour to make sure it still breathed. She named her baby. Winter passed slowly. The cub grew stronger, curious, playful. And when spring finally loosened winter's grip, Umsura walked baby to the edge of the forest. She did not tie her. She did not call her back. She simply whispered goodbye. The cub disappeared between the trees. Umsura returned to her cabin alone. The second return. 2 winters later, during the quiet blue dusk of January, Umsura heard something outside her door. A heavy breath. A low rumble. She opened the door slowly. There she stood, enormous now, a full-grown brown bear. Baby. But she was not alone. Beside her lay a newborn cub, weak and trembling. The mother did not growl, did not threaten. She simply looked at Umsura and stepped aside. Umsura understood. Once again, the iron stove burned day and night. Once again, milk warmed. Once again, hands that had lived 8 decades fought against the cold. The newborn survived. When spring returned, the mother bear nudged her cub toward the trees. Before leaving, she turned once more toward the cabin. Then they were gone. Umsura believed she would never see them again. The third winter. The storm that year was the worst in decades. Wind tore across the tundra like something alive. Snow swallowed the paths between trees. One afternoon, returning from ice fishing, Umsura's sled nearly overturned in the wind. And then she saw it. A massive brown shape lying beside her cabin door. At first, she thought it was a drift of snow. Then it moved. The bear struggled to lift her head. Pregnant. Exhausted. Barely able to stand. Umsura dropped her sled and ran forward. She knelt in the snow, looked into those familiar eyes, and whispered, "Baby." The bear exhaled slowly, as if she had been waiting. The shed. Umsura could not bring a full-grown bear into her cabin. But she had a small wooden shed beside it, once used for tools and hay. She worked through the storm, spreading straw, reinforcing the door, lighting a small iron stove inside. The blizzard howled like a living creature outside. Inside the shed, life trembled on the edge. That night, the labor began. No doctors. No equipment. Only an old woman, a flickering lantern, and instinct passed down through generations. Hours passed. Wind battered the walls. Snow buried the doorway. And then, the smallest sound. A cub's cry. Then another. 2 tiny bodies, slick with birth, fighting for warmth. Sura moved quickly, drying them with cloth, placing them close to their mother. The great bear, exhausted, lowered her head beside the cubs. For 3 days, the storm did not stop. For 3 days, Sura carried water, fed the stove, and kept watch. Between human and animal, there was no fear, only trust. The morning of silence. One morning, the wind stopped. The world outside was quiet. Too quiet. Sura rose slowly, her joints stiff from sleepless nights, and walked toward the shed. She opened the door. It was empty. No bear. No cubs. Only flattened straw and faint warmth lingering in the air. For a long moment, she stood there, alone again. Then she noticed something outside in the snow. Large paw prints. And beside them, smaller ones. 3 sets. They led toward the forest. She followed them only to the tree line. There, at the edge of white and shadow, she saw movement. The mother bear. Strong again. 2 cubs walking behind her. The bear turned once. Not in fear. Not in warning. But in acknowledgement. Then she disappeared into the endless wilderness. The legacy of trust. Sura returned to her cabin. She placed more wood in the stove. She poured tea into her cup. Outside, the frozen wilderness stretched unchanged. But something invisible remained. 3 winters. 3 returns. Not because the bear had to, but because she chose to. In the harshest place on earth, where survival is never promised, trust had been built between 2 species who owed each other nothing. And yet, gave everything. At -71 degrees Celsius, warmth does not only come from fire. Sometimes it comes from memory, from loyalty, from a bond that defies instinct. And somewhere deep in the forests of Yakutia, a brown bear walks with her cubs, carrying a story that no storm could ever erase.